evening, and welcome to the ASMR Lounge. Today I want to talk about something that's been sitting on my heart for a while. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because I want to share information that may be helpful to you, the viewer. Because I know most of us have dealt with the situation or the situations that I'm going to discuss in the video. Now, this is an ASMR video, so if you want to listen to this while winding down or while you're doing some sort of work, just to kind of have something playing in the background, that's fine. But I want to try something different to not only provide ASMR, but to provide information that I think would be healing to you, the viewer. Now, what I want to talk about today is traumatic behaviors, traumatic experiences, why people make certain decisions, all that good stuff. And I mainly want to focus on relationships, friendship, romantic, family, anything. I really want to focus on that front because I think most of us, if not all of us, have dealt with some sort of traumatic experience from another individual. Now, I was afraid to do this in the beginning because I didn't know how well received it would be. Because a lot of people just come to these ASMR videos just to kind of tune out and whatever. And you can still do that with this video. If you just want to tune out and focus on something else and just have something playing in the background, that's great. That's fine. But while I've been on my break from making videos, I've been exploring YouTube, TikTok, Instagram to some degree before I deleted it for a bit. And the one thing I've seen is a lot of toxicity being spread through these platforms. And when I started this ASMR channel, I didn't want to be another one of those YouTubers spreading toxicity. In certain occasions, I've kind of messed up, and I ended up deleting the content because I realized I was giving a terrible message. I was kind of falling in the same category. And I don't want to be that influencer. I don't want to be that YouTuber that gives you terrible information or makes you feel terrible. I want to be that YouTuber that can provide you that healing information so that way you know what I wish I knew back then, right? And so today I want to talk about, like I said, just why people make decisions when it comes to trauma or whatever. And I want to focus on relationships and dating scene first because I see that a lot in the relationships and dating scene. So, I was watching a video about like an hour ago. It's been an hour ago. I've recorded this multiple times and I never did it right to my liking, so I'm recording it again. But I saw a video a while ago on Instagram, and there was this guy who he's a video commentator, so he'll watch a video and he'll comment on it and how he feels about it. And he was watching this girl talk about how she had the perfect boyfriend. He was good to her. He was independent. He had a very strong sense of values and all that good stuff. And he treated her real well. And she ended up leaving him for an ex of hers who didn't treat her well at all. Who basically did what he did. He didn't really give a crap about her, but she still decided to go back to the ex. I've seen a lot of videos like that, and the excuses a lot of these people would say is because, well, the individual was boring, or they were corny, or they were lame, or all that stuff. And growing up, that used to really trigger me because I've lived that situation a lot in my life. So much that I start to question, like, do I even belong on this planet? Like, people don't even see me as, people don't see me as exciting. They don't see me as who I know I am. So if people don't see me this way, like they see me as boring or lame or too good or whatever the case, whatever the excuse is these days, like why am I here? I clearly don't fit. I don't fit in here. Like I'm not edgy enough, or I'm not this enough. And that cycle would play in my head for a very long time. And as I've gotten older, I've started to actually look at different perspectives of why that occurs, as opposed to beating myself up to a point where I hated myself. And so under that video, there were comments, comments you would expect to see in a video like that, like, all these people are trash, all these people want toxicity, they think good people are boring, blah 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 blah, all that stuff, right? And responses like that are also coming from trauma, pain. Someone probably hurt them, left them, did something to them, and the next best thing, because when you're in pain, man, you just want somebody to, acknowledge that pain exists, is to be like, that person's trash, that person's a bad person, da 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 da. Which, when I was younger, that's where I went, right? That was where I took it, like, or she's trash, she's a bad person, da 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 da, or and even to a point where I would even beat myself up, until I got the epiphany that I did, and that's recently. So, if you're an individual who went through a situation similar to that, where you were the perfect boyfriend or girlfriend to somebody, perfect friend, and they decided to go back to an ex or choose somebody they deemed more edgy or whatever the hell that the excuse is. The reason why they did so wasn't because there was anything wrong with you. As a matter of fact, when someone does that, it's going to sound crazy, but take it as a compliment. Take it as a huge compliment. Why? Well, let's point out a scenario. Let's put a scenario out there. Let's say you have two good friends, right? You have a very successful friend, and you have a friend that's it's a mess. He's a mess, or she's a mess, right? They're not successful. They're messy. They're dramatic. They're just that toxic friend that you know about. But you have another friend who is successful. They have a good life. They're close with their loved ones. They're family people. They have a small circle of friends, but their circle of friends are really good people. And let's say you're still trying to figure something out. You're still trying to figure your life out, right? You're still trying to figure where you belong, because everybody has their own process. This is what may be fast for some may not be fast for others. There's nothing wrong. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means that your path is different. That's all it is. You're not less than that individual, and they're not more than you. Your path's just different. But when you're coming from a wounded place, when you're coming from a place of, you know, consistently beating yourself up or consistently feeling negative about yourself, your response will be different as opposed to somebody who isn't coming from that place. So let's say you decide to come from a healthy perspective or a healthy place, right? What would you do? Well, you would go to your successful friend and you'd be like, hey, could you give me some pointers on how you are able to become as successful as you are? Could you show me different things so that way I can get to where you are or build a success for my own as opposed to not, you know? You would become closer to become a better person and you will learn from what they've done or take tips from them to improve your life. Well, if you're coming from a negative space and you didn't do the work on yourself, you don't want to do the work on yourself because it's too painful, and that's not shaming anybody, man. This world is hard. This life is hard, and some people have traumas that's hard to kind of review and unearth and heal and deal with because just certain people go through certain things that are just too hard to deal with sometimes. But regardless, let's say you're not trying to deal with that improvement. You don't want to heal. You don't want to deal with that because it's too hard. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. The easy route or the route that you would tend to take would be, well, I don't want to be near the successful individual because they make me feel bad about myself. I don't want to be near that friend because they remind me of all the things I lack. And so what happens is a lot of people, what happens is they start to talk crap about the successful friend if they're coming from a toxic place, or they'll distance themselves from them, or they'll develop envy or jealousy, and they'll choose to hang out with the less successful friend because that person makes them feel better about themselves. And so when people say, oh, I left them for my toxic ex, or I left them for that toxic friend, or we're not friends anymore because they're too boring, or all that stuff, understand it's not coming from a place of there's something wrong with you. They don't feel good in themselves, and they need someone that's coming from a worse place to compare themselves to. So that girl, she did the guy a favor, even if it may not look like that, because losing anybody is painful. I don't care if they're toxic or not. When you really care about an individual, losing that individual is painful. But she was not in the place to be with that person. She was not in a mindset to handle a person that had values, who took care of themselves, who took care of their belongings, who took pride in who they were, because she didn't do that. She wasn't happy with who she was. She wasn't happy with where she was at. She needed someone to compare herself to so she can feel better about herself. And since she knew her ex was a crappy person, she's like, you know what? At least he makes me feel better about myself. Because I may be crappy, but he's worse. And so, growing up, I used to kick my butt because I was like, man, I'm not good enough. I'm not bad. I'm not a bad boy. I'm not edgy enough. I'm too boring. There's something wrong with me. And it get to a point where, and I had low self-esteem growing up. So it was just a cluster of mess that I didn't know how to deal with. And I didn't have people to tell me, hey, this is the reason why this is going on. And so I internalized all of it. I beat myself up. I was hard on myself. And it was recently where I realized, like, you know, these people need someone coming from a worse position to compare themselves to. It has nothing to do with you being a good person or being boring or you just have too many values or you think you're better than it. It's not that. They feel horrible about themselves. And it's sad. It's not a I don't take that as a laughing matter. I don't want At the end of the day, I don't want anyone to feel bad about themselves. I don't want anyone to feel less. But that's the reality of the situation, unfortunately. And so when someone feels that way, they're going to gravitate towards someone who's either doing as bad as them or if not worse, so that way they can feel validated. And it's sad to see that because individuals like that miss out on really good people who could change them, not change them, you can't change a person, but who could help them grow for the better, who can teach them lessons that can help them heal those wounds that hurt a lot. Because we all are healing something in this life. I'm healing every day, literally I'm tired of it at this point. I'm healing every day from traumas from my childhood, traumas from my early adulthood. I'm healing from different things every single day. But you have to want to get better in order to get better. But that's a choice. And some people, they aren't in the place to make that choice. They're not in that mindset to make that choice. And to be fair, playing devil's advocate, I work long hours every day. Especially recently. I've been working long hours every day. Some people don't have the time to do that work. Some people don't have the time to do all that inner work because they're working from night till night to make ends meet. Some people don't have time to dig up all that trauma, but if you do the work, it'll bring you a lot more happiness as opposed if you don't. And so, watching that video, reading those comments, I'm like, instead of going to the obvious place of like, these people are trash, and that these people are trash, these people are this way, or they all think like this, they all want a project. Instead of coming from that place, come from the place of like, hey, these individuals are dealing with trauma they don't want to even unearth. These individuals are dealing with pain that they don't want to look at. And if I'm trying to be the best version of myself and they're refusing to be the best version of themselves, that's going to trigger them. It's going to make them feel less. It's going to make them envious. And so either they improve or they walk away. And in her case, she chose to walk away. And again, she did him a favor because she's not going to be that toxic person causing issues in his life. But at the same time, she's going to continue to run into the same cycle if she doesn't deal with that wound. And it's sad to see that because I believe everybody deserves to be happy in a relationship, whether it be friendship, dating, whatever. We all deserve to find a person that makes us happy. But that's not something that's just going to show up if we don't even know what that looks like. And that requires us to sometimes look in ourselves and say, well, man, why am I responding like this? Why do I continue to choose these toxic people? And like I said, usually it's because, man, like, it's easier. It's easier to um, it's easier to compare ourselves to someone who's not doing as great as opposed to trying to become better and do that work. Because, like I said, sometimes we don't have the time for it. Sometimes we don't have the mental state. Sometimes that trauma is just too much. It's too overwhelming. Sometimes, like certain, some people get panic attacks when they think of whatever trauma they went through. Some people just get so sick. It's sad. It's hard for them to address those things, and that's part of life. Unfortunately, it's sad. And so it's not that these people are bad people. Some of these people are evil, or they're sick, or they just love toxicity. It's because, man, like, it's hard. But these individuals who do the work, who put that effort to become better people, yes, stomach, these individuals that do that work, they understand it's hard, but they do it so that way they can be better, so that way their environment can be better. And if we truly believe that we can find good individuals, that we deserve to be with good individuals, it sometimes it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a cakewalk, unfortunately. And I'm saying this because I'm speaking from experience. Like, my experience in life has not been easy. It's not been a cakewalk. Like I said, I'm healing every day. I'm dealing with different traumas every day. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to better myself the best I can, so that way I can present an image and be a figure that can be of help to my community, to be of service to my community, as opposed to being someone who's a hindrance or spreading toxicity and whatnot. But the main focus of this video, because I don't want to stay too long and just talk for hours. The purpose of this video is to let you know that if you are putting the work into yourself, if you are trying to become a better person, and you have individuals who make you feel bad about that, or tell you that, oh, you're too boring, or you're too corny, or whatever, understand it's coming from a place that they have a lot of trauma. If not a lot, they have a deep wound that is so painful for them to deal with, that the easiest decision is to shame you for doing the work, as opposed to trying to figure out, how did you do it? And for those individuals, man, don't call them trash. I know it's the first response, especially if you're angry about it. Because I've been there, where I was just angry. It's like, these people are trash. These people, they this, that, and the third. They're not trash. They're hurting, and they don't know how to deal with it. And some of it, it's just too much for them to sit down and unpack. Some people weren't taught to deal with that sort of trauma. They weren't encouraged to deal with that trauma, and so to deal with it is taboo to them. So they do the same thing, and this is where family curses come from. They follow in the same footsteps that their parents did. Instead of dealing with the trauma, they try to find someone that's worse off and be like, well, at least I'm not like that person. They make me feel good about themselves, and so because they make me feel good about myself, that's who I'm supposed to be with, because at least I don't feel less like when I was with the other person who did do the work. And it doesn't mean they're bad people, man. It just means that they just don't know how to deal with it. And so, if you're ever faced with an individual that does that, that's like, I'm leaving you for my ex, or I went back to my ex, or they're envious of your success, or whatever the case, don't look at it as they're bad people, or that they're evil people, or they're this, that, the third. There's either a trauma they just can't deal with because it hurts way too bad, or they don't know how to deal with it. And so the best thing you can do is let them go, let them learn. And if they decide to come back in your life and they decide to do the work, if you want to let them back in, that's fine. If you don't, it's okay. But don't jump on the same cycle that they're on, because all it's going to do is hurt you in the long run. Just always remember that there's so many people on this planet that have a lot of wounds. They have a lot of trauma, they have a lot of stuff, and it's not an excuse. By no means this is not an excuse. But don't give that same energy back. Transmute it. Transmute it and see it from a different perspective, so that way you can grow as an individual. At the same time, with the knowledge that you accumulated, you can teach others how to see it from that perspective. So that way, instead of shaming these individuals, we're like, hey man, I hope you do the work. I hope you take care of yourself. I hope you get better. I hope you find a way. So that way, you don't feel the necessary need to go back to someone that treated you like crap. You don't feel the necessary need to go towards individuals who don't respect you and love you for who you are. Give it to the universe and just release. So that's it for tonight's video. I hope it helped some of you. I hope it provides a perspective that is healing and sheds light on dark situations that can arise from these types of scenarios. But anyways, have a good one. Take care. And I'll see you again soon, hopefully.